Hello and welcome again to another exciting edition of the Pittsburgh Steelers Show on your SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Bradshaw Ben, a.k.a. Will Massasak, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter. And if you've been sending hate mail, that's probably the guy you're targeting. With me to discuss all things Pittsburgh Steelers and a look around the NFL are my two best cohorts money can't buy. The first one is in Pittsburgh Suburban Zone 22 again. His name is Steel Perch. He's with us. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for asking.
You're back from you were what do they call that? On location, you were indisposed. Yes, you were hidden in the bunker last week. I think maybe you got.
I was retired. I just came out of retirement for this show.
Right. And also with us from the coronavirus hotspot of the world, somewhere in the South, his name is Dom. He goes by FC. He is with us now. How are you, sir?
I am perfect, just like your Pittsburgh Steelers.
They certainly are. This is the first time since we've been doing this show, and actually the first time in a really long time, that your Pittsburgh Steelers are 4-0 to start the season. How about that? That's an amazing stat, actually, when you consider how good they've been. And you can say it's just they played, four subpar teams, but a lot of teams seem to go 4-0 every year. I don't know. I'm going to start just a quick question on that, FC. Do you think this is the fact that they're 4-0 for the first time since '79 is an indictment of the inconsistency of this team, or is it just that they play tough teams in their division and usually get one of those early? What would be your take on that?
A little bit of both. Luck, it's been suspended to start seasons. We've had quarterback issues. We've had running backs hold out. We've had wide receivers go off the fucking rails. It's been a variety of reasons and excuses, but, they're 4-0. First time in a long time. I'm not going to complain about it. They played the teams that are on their schedule, so if they would have played the Titans, I think that, if we were sitting here at 5-0, I'd be a lot more confident, but we beat the teams on our schedule.
Yeah, exactly. Perch, is that how you see it, or are they a product of their poor opponents so far?
It's a mix of both. I mean, it's just so hard to win 4 games in a row in the NFL. I don't care any point in the season. It's tough to win 4 straight games. To do it at the beginning of the year when you're still learning your personnel and things like that makes it tougher. The Eagles are probably going to win that division. They're not horrible. Where Denver lost their quarterback halfway through our game, and the Giants are horrible. I don't think that the other 2 opponents were really that bad.
Yeah, I suppose so. Well, Perch, since you didn't have much chance to talk about the last couple of weeks in the NFL since the last time we talked, the Titans seem to use their own ineptitude in preventing the spread of COVID on their team as a rallying cry to win the game. Talk about like twisting something on its head. What was your, you probably saw that. What was your feeling about the way the Titans have responded to this?
Probably the second dumbest revenge theme after the Browns trying to get revenge for Myles Garrett taking off somebody's helmet and trying to murder him with it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Titans, you're starting to see separation in the league now. You're starting to see who that true upper crust crop of teams really are. The Titans are just so tightened up and buttoned up on both sides of the ball. They've got good defense. They run it well. They don't turn it over. They don't make mental mistakes. Not a lot of penalties. They're a tough out for anybody. I mean, I think even last year without, having the most talented team and then switching quarterbacks halfway through the year, they were, a few plays away from making a Super Bowl. It would have been a huge upset for them to get there, but they were a handful, and then they just have another year behind them. And you're starting to see teams like Green Bay and Seattle out in the NFC that are starting to separate. And, the Titans and the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Steelers in the AFC, and you're starting to see, those groups separate a bit.
That's true. Well, FC, let's get to talking about the Steelers' most recent game, and that would be their victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. Couple notable things in this game. Steelers' defense is now the leader in the NFL in the most consecutive games without allowing 30 points. The last time they allowed 30 was against the Patriots in the first week of last year. So I believe that's 19 games. Only Denver and Chicago have also not allowed 30 points this year in the season where scoring is kind of off the charts. And the Steelers offense managed to crack 30 for the first time in even longer than that, I guess. So which one of those streaks do you find more impressive, FC?
Wow. I mean, it's the shortest midget type of question. Wow. I guess not giving up 30 points because of having the backup quarterback in for 15 games last year, the amount of turnovers, just how well the defense played last year. So I would say not the 19 games without giving up 30 points because they didn't have a starting quarterback and the comedy of errors that took place last season.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way as well. I felt like that's a pretty amazing stat. It may come to an end this week, even in a victory, but it just feels like it's been really hard for teams to do. Even good defenses and good teams have allowed opponents to put up 30. Perch, we got this far into the podcast without talking about Mapletron, your Chase Claypool amazing weekend with 4 touchdowns, probably should have been 5. I guess my question for you about that is, of course, it's amazing and all that, but do you think it might be sustainable? What was your take on what happened with Chase Claypool on Sunday and how that might translate to going forward for him?
Well, first, I'll give your little article, your post-game article at the Steeler Fury website a plug. I saw the headline and I thought, man, this guy is reading my mind, the whole "Oh Canada" thing. But no, I wasn't, as impressed with Chase Claypool as I was Matt Canada. The wrinkles that he's put in this offense from last year to this year, the stuff we bitched about on this podcast, every freaking week, they line up, they run it right up the middle. There's no misdirection. There's no motion. There's no jet sweeps. He started the game by giving the ball to two of the lesser known guys on the depth chart, Ray McLeod and the other running back. Those two guys get balls and
McFarland.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
McFarland, the two mix. Get the ball with speed on the edge, and the way that they're mixing the ball around, you can't key on anybody. You can't just say, hey, we're taking Juju away this year. That's fine. Ben will throw the ball to 7 other guys. They'll spread the ball around. They'll run it to 4 and 5 different guys. They're not just going to run James Conner until the wheels fall off and give him 30 carries in a game. He's going to get, he'll get his 15, but there's going to be 3 or 4 other guys that carry the ball quite a bit too. So not to go off track, but that's what I'm paid for.
Sure. Although, let me give you a follow-up. Can I get a follow-up just before you move on to the other thing? Yeah. I would say, I appreciate the fact that Matt Canada's here and, obviously is another good offensive mind to have in the room that makes a difference. But, last year I gave them a pass, and I'll tell you why. I think this kind of offense is really hard for a quarterback. They have so much to think about, calling the play, telling players how they like to do it specifically, looking at pre-snap alignments, calling protection, and then what they're actually executing at the snap is pretty complicated for guys that don't have any NFL experience. So I think last year I give them a pass. Before that, to me, I give Ben more credit than Matt Canada. Wouldn't you agree? Because to me, it's like Ben had to buy in, and I'm not sure Ben 2 years ago bought in. But I look at what Randy Fichtner did in college in his previous experience as an offensive coordinator, and he was, bringing in groups of players in and out of personnel and running, quads to the right and all kinds of weird stuff that in that era especially was pretty advanced. So I'm just wondering if it's good to give Matt Canada credit, but maybe we should give Ben a little credit for that as well.
Well, Ben played the first 2 games last year and the offense was stuck in the mud. So the thing that if you really watched and studied the games last year, it was just very predictable. It was very vanilla. There wasn't just a lot of window. The teams in the league that now are really doing big things in the run game have a lot of window dressing, a lot of misdirection, a lot of motion. It's even down. It's the college games bleeding up to the NFL, and the teams who just line up with a fullback and run power up the middle, they're gone, or they're just not effective. And I think that the little bit of splash that he added in, and now this team's averaging 30 points a game. You didn't even think about that. 29.5, 30 points a game. they're consistently moving the ball. It's spreading it around. It's, they're not trying to force it to AB anymore. They're not trying to give Le'Veon Bell his 30 touches. It's spreading it around to a bunch of guys who are talented that have different skill sets, a lot more creative. I just think that it's somebody that, Matt Canada's contribution to the offense has not gone unnoticed, and I think it's been a big factor. But back to the original question from 5 minutes ago in Claypool, he got 2 gimme touchdowns, really. The one at the end, Ben audibled and had him lined up on a linebacker down the middle. He just ran and caught the ball. Hey, he made the play great. The little sweep at the beginning of the game, that little 2 or 3 yard touchdown, that fine, whatever. That's just taking advantage of his skill set a lot, where if they can get him on a quick screen, no 5'10", 190-pound cornerback is going to tackle the guy before 3 yards. So they're taking advantage of that. But I thought the best plays he made in the game were the ones that got called back. The one where his foot went out of bounds, and the one where the phantom pass interference call, where he basically just took his arm over to catch the ball, and it looked like he pushed the guy because the guy's momentum carried him away. But those were the best plays. I think the most impressive thing about Claypool so far, one, is just his mentality. He's picked up the offense so fast and the understanding. And 2, he's just everything's natural and smooth. He doesn't bobble stuff. He's not fumbling, where we see a lot of these young skill position guys come in and they don't protect the ball. He puts it away. He's got a certain veteran savvy, just smoothness to him, where you don't get worried. Where, when Deontay Johnson touches the ball now and he's carrying it in one arm and he's 180 pounds soaking wet, and you're afraid he's going to fumble and get hit, I don't get that same feeling with Clay. He seems like he knows where he needs to be. We know all about the physical talents. So yeah, I think he's, if you ask me right now, I think he's got a ceiling higher than Plaxico Burress did in the NFL.
Yeah, after the number of games that he's played as a rookie, it's kind of amazing. FC, your take on the sort of the sustainability part of that question with Claypool?
Obviously no one expects 4 touchdowns a game, but he's an elite talent that is intelligent, that football smart, and he seems to be a wonderful human being that's a team player, because he goes all out blocking as well. Core special teams player, especially early in the season. I don't know if he's going to continue to be, considering how productive he's been on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to get this in real quick before I forget it. Greek Steel from the Greek contingency of SteelerFury.com.
And the Canadian contingency as well, yeah. Also
would like to apologize to the Irish American part of the Steeler Fury contingency on the Mick comment.
You can count on FC to be politically,
touch on the Matt Canada versus Ben Roethlisberger discussion. I think that you have to credit all 3. Fitchner definitely, you could want to expand the offense, but I don't think he felt as comfortable laying down a footprint immediately, just going from quarterbacks coach right to coordinator. I think that last year might have been a blessing for him, expanding as an offensive mind because of being stuck in the mud with, Doc and with Rudolph. Yeah. I think that he probably had a plan. I think, Canada, is a smart guy. Watched him at the University of Pittsburgh, loved what he did. Thought he did a great job at Maryland under horrible circumstances. Went on to LSU where it didn't work out, but it didn't work out because I don't think they had a quarterback intelligent enough to run his offense, which you got into about the checks, the pass protections, setting everything up, getting on the same page as your receivers. There's a lot to go along with that. And Ben had to be open as a 38-year-old quarterback to do all this, and he seems to be more than receptive. So I think you have to give all 3 men credit, and I like the looks of the Steelers' offense. I think that it's still arching upwards, and a big part of that is because of Mapletron.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's funny. Last year we were like, if we could just get Ben back with this defense, they'll be in really good shape. Perch, of course, the thing that hasn't really worked out in that regard for the first 4 weeks is Steelers defense has been, overall pretty good. But in terms of what they've, really put on tape for a full game in all 4 games, I think they would be the first to tell you that their performance has been kind of disappointing, especially on third downs, getting off the field, which is like it's an old theme. I mean, I guess here's my question. If I distill this into a question, do you think it's just the league right now that it's a lot easier for offenses to convert third downs and they're not calling a lot of offensive penalties and there's no crowd noise? Or is there something specific that the Steelers defense is doing that makes them worse than other teams at that?
Well, what's Tomlin always say? It's popcorn. One thing pops up and then another one pops up. I mean, there was a 3rd and 9 draw play. They had a blitz on. They had 2 guys run past the running back, and he ran for 75 yards on 3rd and 9. I mean, how does that happen? Just stupid stuff. And the biggest concern for me, and something I think is more schematic and they should be able to fix, how many times have we seen in every single game this year a drive they need to stop or a team driving before half, they get them backed up to 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15. And here comes a 16-yard pass, a 15-yard pass, an 18-yard pass into a soft zone with a bunch of guys standing around thinking, I thought you had him. I mean, that's sort of a thing that they've got to get that cleared up because it's happening every single game against mediocre to bad offenses, mediocre to bad quarterbacks have really just eaten them up on money downs. You know, if the other team gets enough blocking to prevent the sack, the soft zone behind it it's not working. That's been a concern. I think we're going to start here in the next month seeing much more proficient offenses and some better quarterbacks coming in, and boy, they've got to get it cleaned up. And if I see Minkah Fitzpatrick bounce off another tackle, I'm going to have to go buy 2 more TVs because I'm already down 1. He's not trying to. I mean, he's not attempting to tackle anybody. He's running in and thinking that he's big and strong enough to put his shoulder into somebody and they're going to fall over. And it hasn't happened once this year. He hasn't made a hit that has tackled somebody. Every time he makes a hit, they bounce off and get 10 more yards. The guy needs to wrap up a little bit and start to tackle.
Yeah,
I'm not going to bust on him for making all the interceptions he had last year. Yeah, people are, for the most part, not throwing, that deep middle part of the field where he's taking it up. And anything underneath, he's not making the tackles at all.
Yeah, and it feels like, I'm sensing, could be reading something into it, but I'm sensing that he is trying hard to force turnovers. And so in his mind, he's pressing a little bit in that, and he's thinking he's going to hit a guy to knock the ball out versus tackling him. But, your first job is to tackle. And then the second guy there, your second job, once you know you've got the guy to the ground, is to try to get the football. So I think some of that is anxiety.
He's more Ed Reed than Ryan Clark. Somebody needs to tell him that. You're not the guy that's going to go out there and nearly paralyze yourself in every big hit and knock people out. He's more of a ball hawk and more of a skill guy. He needs to wrap up when it's time to tackle.
Sure. I mean, to that point, Perch, that's what concerned me when they said after the season that, they wanted to get him more involved and they were going to not have him play as much, center field. To me, it's like he did plenty of damage and controlled aspects of the opposing team's game by being back there in center field. I mean, some of those 3rd and 16 and 3rd and 15 throws are a lot harder if you're worried about the guy in the middle, right? So I felt like that was I don't know if that's a push from, his standpoint that he wants to be more versatile and seen as being all around the defense. But it just felt to me like he made more plays when he was, when his primary responsibility was to sit in the, back of the defense.
The flip side of that, though, too, is one of the problems is people are matching up people against Mike Hilton. If you could have a 5'9" cornerback having to cover your 6'4" number 3 receiver or your 6'5" tight end, it's an automatic first down. So, maybe the Steelers need to find a way to get Minkah in on coverage on some of those third down plays and having him locking up the third receiver. Because if you're playing the Steelers, you look at it and say, they got 2 pretty good corners on the outside and a pretty good safety back deep. Who's the third guy? Oh, they got this little 5'9", 180-pound guy. If he's not going to blitz us, he's got to cover somebody. Right. We're going to win that matchup. I like Hilton's like the second leading tackler on the team right now because people are throwing at him.
And I think, it's a good point. And I think, we should know this well because this is kind of what Juju Smith-Schuster's career has been. He's a bigger slot receiver that's athletic and can make plays against some bad matchups sometimes. I think that's definitely a big factor. I just, like you said, the solution is to understand how to get yourself from being schemed into those situations. Mike Hilton, there are things that he's really good at. So make sure that you are asking him to do the stuff he's really good at and not putting too much on his plate. I don't know. FC, do you think it's a more personnel issue, or do you think it's something that they can try to, have checks for that to scheme themselves out of that?
It's a combination of the two. I'm not a big numbers guy, but a quarter of the way through the season, I found a few things interesting. We'll go with quarterback ratings versus Steelers defensive backs. Micah Fitzpatrick, opposing quarterbacks, 138.7 quarterback rating. Joe Hayden, 113.1. Edmonds, 98.2. Nelson, 68. Mike Hilton, 88. It's a problem. Now, there's other problems. Has Cam Hayward played this season? He has 6 pressures and through 4 games. In contrast, Bud Dupree has 18. TJ Watt has 16. Stephen Tuitt has 13. Those are impressive numbers, actually, from the top 3, especially Tuitt. That surprised me with 13 pressures. I thought his play has been increasingly getting better, and I think that's going to be a guy that's going to really be on the come. And a guy this week, I don't think that 285-pound Chris Hubbard is going to have he's going to have his hands full with Tuitt today. But the most interesting stat for the Steelers that coming into this week is teams are averaging 0.78 yards rushing when Tyson Alualu's in the game. Less than 1 yard per rush. 3/4 of a yard per rush when Tyson Alualu's in the game. What that tells me is maybe Tyson Alualu should see some more plays. And if that's at the expense of Cam Hayward, that's at the expense of Cam Hayward. We need players that are making plays, which brings up scheme, where I definitely agree with the idea of moving Minka around and getting him out of a robber role or a deep third role. He's a playmaker. You got to let that dog hunt. You got to let him put him in position to make plays. I think they did a lot more of that last year by necessity and have to than they are this year. I think the Steelers defense can improve. I think a part of it's scheme, and I think a part of it's play.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the pass rush is ahead of coverage at this point. They have to work hand in hand, and it's sort of like if pass rush doesn't get the job done and doesn't at least speed the clock up for quarterbacks, that coverage behind it has not been that solid. And I don't know if that's because they're intentionally playing kind of soft. I mean, Perch, I feel like the Steelers' MO, their defense against quarterbacks that are perceived as being mobile. By that I mean quarterbacks that actually really like to run, use not just moving their feet in the pocket, but they like to actually, get out on the edge and make throws, or get out on the edge and then take off. That their strategy against those kinds of quarterbacks has always been to play contain, which slows down the pass rush and puts more pressure on the coverage. But for the most part, it works for them because quarterbacks get frustrated not being able to run and having to take those underneath throws. And then, if they do try to run, a lot of times they step up into coverage. I mean, into pass rush. Let's kind of take this conversation into this week's matchup with the Cleveland Browns. Baker's a little bit like this. He loves to escape to his right and make short throws in front of him when he's out of the pocket. Are we going to see another week where the Steelers kind of are more focused on contain than trying to get to him quickly?
No, I think they're going to hit him. I think they know he wants to roll to his right, and they could scheme to put a body on him. Where he's going to end up. He doesn't want to go left. He's smaller. He'll get flushed out of the pocket. He gets happy feet. And running to his right ends up where TJ Watt likes to live. And TJ Watt feasts and kills the Browns. So it lines up pretty good. And the Steelers are not above being physical. And Cam Hayward's already come out and said, hey, we want to test those ribs. We're gonna put a little hot sauce on him this week. And I expect them to really, they're going to be revved up. 1, it's a rivalry game. 2, it's basically for first place in the division. 3, you got the whole nonsense with Myles Garrett and all that shit that happened last year. It's a home game. the Browns have won once ever in this stadium, like 17 years ago. What's Ben's record? Is it like 27-2 or 27-1-1 against the Browns, something like that? So it just
never lost to them at home. 16 straight.
We lost to the Browns once at home 17 years ago, I think. It was the only time Cleveland's ever won here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just think that you're going to, Tomlin against division rivals has a really good record. They'll have their focus. It isn't somebody that's going to sneak up on them. I really expect the Steelers defense to come out and try and feast. The big thing is really, to me, is going to be containing the Browns run game, because the Browns ran pretty well against the Steelers last year. They've been pretty much the best run team in the league this year. I know one of their running backs is down, Chubb's down for a few more weeks, but even the backup guy off the bench has been doing pretty good for them. So it just, to me, is if we can slow that run and keep them to 3rd and long and actually get a little bit of coverage and then put a few hits on Mayfield, that it could start turning into a turnover fest.
Yeah, I mean, FC, this, I think both offenses in this game are going to want to run the football, partially at least to slow down the pass rush, and partially so that they don't get in situations where they're trying to, convert long 3rd downs against either team's pass rush. Where do you see, who has the advantage in that in terms of Steelers front against the Browns front and the Steelers offensive front against the Browns front, or vice versa? Like I said, who do you think has the advantage in that?
On paper, I would say that the Cleveland Browns defensive line has an advantage against the Steelers offensive line. The Steelers defensive front has an advantage against the Cleveland Browns front. But game's not played on. How I think it's going to be played is I expect unbelievable, huge performances from players that wouldn't stand out for coming into this game. I'm concerned about Myles Garrett. Obviously you are, but Vernon is not bad as the other outside pass rusher, and they get interior pressure with a variety of players, be it Obagobi from the University of Charlotte, be it Sheldon Richardson, be it whoever the next week got. They're getting interior pressures because teams are overcommitting so much to Myles Garrett, and for good reason. I would be looking to chip and maybe help on Myles Garrett, especially early in drives. So one thing that I love is the Steelers short passing game. Myles Garrett may have to rush the passer 13 or 14 times before he sees a 5-step drop. Because I expect the Steelers are going to try to score points like a slot machine. I just get that impression hearing Tomlin this week, listening to the limited things that have come out so far this week, the Cam Hayward. I expect big games from Stephen to it. A humongous game. You guys are absolutely correct. He likes to roll right, but he also likes to step up in the pocket and roll right. Chris Hubbard is expected to start at left guard this week for the Browns. And Chris Hubbard was a pretty good athletic left tackle. He can move his feet. He is not a physical player. And Tuitt is going to probably give him big-time problems. I think that's overlooked is the Steelers. When's the last time they could put 2 rookies as first team offensive rookie team? Because I think the contributions of Kevin Dawson are so overlooked by so many Steeler fans. I don't see a step down at all from DeCastro. I think he's been excellent. I think he's faced real competition. Fletcher Cox is as good as they get.
Yep.
And, he gave Matt Filer far more problems than he gave Doxson on Sunday. So on paper is one thing. I just think in Pittsburgh, that crowd, what it means to the Steelers, and what it is going to mean to the Coach Tomlin, I think that you're going to get a really, really banshee effort from the Pittsburgh Steelers this week.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way. Perch, the whole Myles Garrett thing, I agree with FC about the short passing game, which definitely feeds in the Steelers' favor. But I feel like for Garrett, that the thing that really, the Browns have trouble with is, he keeps – if you run the football at him, sort of in the gap that he vacates as he's, full out to the passer on the edge, that teams have had a lot of success with that over the last couple of years against Cleveland. Do you think that's something that we'll see in this game used? Because, like I said, feels like you've got to really neutralize Garrett if you want to beat this team.
Yeah, I think that's what you typically see most good offensive coordinators do is they're going to keep chipping at you. You're going to get a lot of quick passing game. Like FC said, you're going to get runs into your vacated zone. You're going to get the guy frustrated with double teams and chips and that sort of a thing. It's just Ben's got to have a clock in his head because when Myles Garrett gets around the corner, he's he's leading the league in strip sacks. I mean, he's chopping to get the ball from the blind side, and one of those plays can turn a game from a loss to a win. So we had James Harrison here for a number of years, and that's how he won Defensive Player of the Year, not just getting the sacks, but when he came around, he was coming around with bad intentions to knock that ball out. So Ben and the skill position guys really got to take care of the ball, and you can't let that guy beat you. Every game that I've watched with Cleveland, he's got one or two plays where he blows it up for somebody else and they get the sack, or he comes around and makes a big play and strip sacks you. So whether it's running at him, chipping at him, double teaming him the whole game, you got to pay special attention to him because he's a freak and he's eaten our tackle up before. Villanueva has not had good games against Myles Garrett.
Well, I will say this: he got beat by Garrett a few times in that tie in the rain, but he also got Garrett a few times in that game. I felt that was I give AV a little bit more credit for more of a standoff. It's just that you give up.
How about this?
Go ahead.
We have not helped Billy very much with Garrett. We've left him pretty much out there on an island and let him pretty much, go mano a mano. And I will say that, and I ain't going to be surprised if the Steelers do it again this week. I'm really not.
Well, here's the thing, FC, just to follow up on this. Garrett, we have this memory of Garrett and Villanueva matching up, but they've played Garrett a lot on the other side this year. Like, I think it's I wish I knew the exact breakdown, but I think it's kind of more like 60-40 where he's playing more against the right tackle than he is against the left tackle. And maybe
him and Chucks are going to end up fighting. It might be for the best Steelers.
Yeah, I feel like I guess I'll let you answer, but I was going to say I kind of feel like, in a way, I like that matchup better than the other side in a way because, to me, you got to be able to absorb the length. And Chooks just seems like so far in his career that he has taken these long guys and just like sucked the energy out of their long arm and the kind of advantage they usually get with length. Go ahead, FC. I'll let you talk about it.
He's got a Fluzzo Adams element to his game where he isn't as tall, but he chips away at you. He takes a little bit from you every pass rush. He lands his punch, and he can re-anchor, and the referees don't call him penalties. So you get one move, and then he's grabbing you inside your shoulder pads, and the referees ain't calling it. It's the same thing with boxing. You play the game to where the referees allow you to play it.
Right.
You're on a pace for the fewest penalties since 1959 in the NFL. They're just not calling offensive, holding. They're looking for, I guess, stuff like offensive pass interference, but you're not seeing, the amount of defensive holding is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not like they're calling, the defensive penalties, like offensive penalties, at an equal rate as defensive penalties. They're calling far less offensive penalties, right? So,
literally, the lowest penalty total since 1959.
Which we're going to get to in a minute. Perch, running the football in this game without Chubb and with the Steelers' run game being, I guess I would say, inconsistent at best, other than when they're running, an end around to Ray McLeod. Who do you think has more success in this game? By the way, I have an avatar bet with a Cleveland Browns fan that the Steelers will outrush Cleveland this weekend. How am I going to do? That's for you, Perch. You're muted.
Sorry, I had music. I think you probably lose that one. Cleveland's got three backs that are averaging over 5 yards a carry, that 800 yards in 5 games between them, and they had some success running against the Steelers both games last year, running some of their zone plays. And I think they're going to be more committed to it. They're doing a lot with their wide receivers. They're not going to outpass Pittsburgh. I'll say that right now, and I think Ben's going to have his way with that defense. For Cleveland to stay in the game or for Cleveland to have a chance to win the game, they really have to establish their run in this game and then build their play action off of that. Otherwise, they're going to be in trouble. So I think Cleveland's going to have some trick plays mixed in there. I think they're going to have a real strong commitment to the run game, where the Steelers can just throw the run game out the window if they want, mix it in here and there, and use the short passing game. So I think you lost that bet.
FC, what's your
I think you have a very good chance of winning that bet.
Say that again?
Here's why. I think you have a very good chance. You have a good chance of winning the bet. It's not as outlandish as it sounds just on the surface. And this is possible reasons why. Chubb's out. Kareem Hunt is nicked. He's expected to play. His last name slips, is actually a pretty deep back, but he's more of a Willie Parker type of back, where it's going to be 2 yards, 3 yards, 71 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards. I know we gave up the huge rush to Miles Sanders. I don't see a repeat of that. And I just have a feeling that you're going to see a nasty, nasty Steelers defense this week. I really do. I think you're going to see them probably fire as well as they did against the Giants. And I think it could be really, really a long day for Cleveland Browns and their fans.
Yeah, my thinking was just, somewhat that Chubb is out, but also that I think the Steelers offense is going to take it to their, the Cleveland D, and they'll be behind. So it just sort of feels like when, the way that they've managed to rack up good rushing totals last year was because the Steelers never really got on top of them. Even in the second game that the Steelers won, the Browns were, had the ability to move the ball on the ground for a while before the game was settled. So, I just felt like that's one aspect of it. And the other is that the Steelers' run defense this year, for all the things you can say about it, they have literally given up one or two plays this entire season. And it just feels like they're, give me the solid run defense who, is bringing it on their way to the passer. That's a tough combination to stop for a team that's really committed to running, because you got to be willing to have a quarter or two where you've done nothing on the ground and still come out, with the ball on the ground in the game. And if the score is, you get to be down by 2 scores, that as you get towards the middle of the game, that becomes really difficult to stay in that mindset. That was my thinking. And I guess the follow-up perch is, you think the Steelers are going to be able to run the ball? You talked about what you think Cleveland can do against the Steelers. You just feel like the Steelers won't be that interested in running, or do you think they won't really be able to run effectively?
I think that they're going to run some. I just don't think that the Steelers are going to stay committed to the run the whole game. I think Cleveland's defense has been pretty good against the run this year. I just think that the Steelers are going to look at it and say, look what we have on the outside, look what they have on the outside. We can put 4 receivers in this game and move the ball in chunks, 5 and 10 and 15-yard chunks down the field, and really neutralize Myles Garrett a good bit and the rest of that pass rush by getting the ball out quick. And mixing in some of their runs, running some of their jet sweeps and some of the misdirection stuff. And I don't think they're just going to line up in traditional power football and run 4 yards at a time up and down the field and control the clock. I think that they're going to be a little bit more aggressive and air it out more.
Have you met Mike Tomlin? I'm just asking. No, I agree with you. I agree with you basically, but the fear is that, the Mike Tomlin effect will creep in, especially now that it's a rivalry game.
Remember the last 6 touchdown game by Ben against the Ravens?
What's that, FC?
When Ben threw for 6 touchdowns against the Ravens 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, 2014, I think, yeah. Do you think this is like this game?
6 years, but time flies. That's the last time I remember Mike Tomlin like this. I think that enough media has called the Steelers fraud 4-0 team, a fraud 4-0 team. It don't mean much. That those outside voices may actually benefit the Steelers this week. And I think that, as much as people try to claim they keep the outside noise, out, it's people hear it and it can inspire. And if Tomlin has the chance to break it off in Cleveland's ass, he's going to do it. Period.
Yeah, we don't let those reality TV storylines creep in, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that the division games have kind of gone one of two ways, right? It feels like they've been either games that were wars of attrition from the beginning, or there's the rare occasion when the Steelers have come out and really jumped on teams. But it's I have PTSD about the Steelers playing attrition football in the division. So at any rate, yeah. But that game with Baltimore, I remember it being closer than it actually was. I guess it ended up being 43-23, that one from 2014. So hopefully we'll have a result, something like that this week. Gentlemen, we're going to get back to predictions for this week's game. Let's quickly go to our illustrious pick segment, brought to us by
Sports and Shit, where you can find your finest Pittsburgh Steelers swag, dog beds, koozies, cups, glasses, napkins.
By the way, and your 2020 dumpster on fire in a flood T-shirt, which very Pittsburgh. Go ahead, Betsy.
You can also now find your Mapletron T-shirts. Not sponsored by Great Steel, despite him being such a large fan of the fine lad, Mike Pereira, Dean Blandino, and how can we ever forget the great Chris Collinsworth from NBC Sports, who I hope gets spina bifida.
And I think I'd like to add Jonathan Vilma to that list.
Oh my God, he was horrible.
James Franco Harris.
James Franco. James Franco.
And I would like a special shout out to John Perry, retired NFL official, who was Steve Levy asked him the question on Monday Night Football. He said, "Hey, penalties are way down this year, and that's kind of a good thing for everybody, right?" And John Perry said, "Well, it certainly improves the watching the game and the flow, but there was a lot of meat left on the bone, and it's time to start calling more than just clear and obvious penalties." That was, it's like in one sentence he encapsulated what is wrong with the NFL, right? Because it's the flow of the game and the enjoyment of watching it is now secondary to, we got to call more than just clear and obvious penalties. It's the craziest thing I've heard. Go ahead.
Whatever happened to I'm out there fishing for whales, not for minnows? Which is probably the greatest advice ever given by a referee. Go out there and fish for a whale. Don't look for a minnow. I
mean, I'm all for calling stuff when it clearly affects the play, even if it's minor infraction, but it affected the outcome of the play. But
in case Claypool actually pushed off, call it.
Yeah, and it's like if you see something that looks like it might be that, but you're in a bad angle and you didn't really catch it, tough luck. Anyway, okay, so enough venting for the moment. Let's pick a game or two. Perch, you weren't here last year. We did a little roulette with the picks. Is there a game in particular you would like to talk about? I'll give you first up.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I'll go with the Buccaneers-Packers game.
Good one.
Green Bay favored by 1 on the road. I'm taking the Packers to win by a touchdown. Win and cover, and take the under 55. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, FC, I have that currently as of today as a Bucks by 3. It kind of feels like I don't know. I saw something this week. I'll just make my pick. I think Tampa Bay wins. I think Tampa Bay just this week was analytics-wise was elevated to the top strength power rankings in the league, and I feel like that is a weird choice. But if you think about it, kind of where their team is at, it makes a little bit of sense. FC, what's your take?
I would agree with Perch. I would actually lead at 3 even, and I would take the under since Perch was nice enough to add that. I'm always for the gambling. How about an interesting stat? Does Tom Brady lead the NFL in pick-6 returns this year?
He might lead him the last.
He had like 4 or 5 games going in back to last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's become a real problem for Tom.
And one more. I'm going to take 5 seconds to talk about the greatness of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is great. The end. I mean, he really is.
Yeah, he's really he's just you're left to pick at whatever flaws he has, and the flaws he has are all related to coming from behind, and coming from behind late and playing on the road. That's it. Otherwise, the guy does everything. And I mean,
top 3 wide receivers down. Top 3. 1, 2, 3. It's still set.
Let me add one more thing to that game, though. Tom Brady and Bruce Arians is the weirdest marriage of all time. Brady has made his career about getting the ball out quickly, getting it out of his hand, and marching down the field. Bruce Arians is hold it for 10 seconds, buddy, take 7-second drop, and chuck it. Brady doesn't like the pass rush. He's not too escapable. It's just I've seen a couple of things in a couple of games. I think if you get a team with a good defense and a good pass rush, those two are going to have problems at some point this year. I mean, they've lost a couple games and he's been hit more than I've seen him hit in a long time. It's a weird marriage, and I could see something bad happening between it by the end of this year.
FC, on a side note, who do you think retires first? Ben, Breeze, Rivers, or Brady? Actually, I'll add Ryan Fitzpatrick to that list. Where
Rivers. I will take Rivers.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers is the closest to done. You think even closer than Breeze?
I do. Pride. I think that Phillip Rivers, I think, realizes that he's coming down to the end.
Yeah, well,
I think Rivers and Breeze are done at the end of the year. Brady holds on one more year to pass up all of Breeze's records, and then Ben holds on 1 year after that. That's my guess.
What about Ryan Fitzpatrick?
He's got a good 5 years left, man. That guy, he's the best quarterback in the league. 1 game a year. He plays 5 games, gets benched after that, and collects his paycheck. He's living the life.
Smart guy.
Put it this way, I would love to have him as a backup next year.
Yeah, I would take Ryan Fitzpatrick as a backup in a heartbeat. Sure, I like him. And he's
Andy Dalton. How about that?
I think you need to have a backup quarterback who's like a little bit of a keeps it loose kind of guy, right? But that the guys the other love him when he comes in the game.
That's Ryan Fitzpatrick, despite being a Harvard grad and all that, but he's supposed to be one hell of a fun-time guy.
Yeah, and I just feel like that, he plays hard and he's not afraid to take a hit and all that stuff. I agree. I would have him as a backup in a minute. Of course, it's a pipe dream because of the money situation. But FC, I'll give you one to pick before we move on. How about this? You pick one, and we'll do one more after that.
How about you pick the game for me? Because I'm sitting here looking and I gamble on them, and I kind of feel that. All
right, I'll make it tough on you. Kansas City at Buffalo. Kansas City is a 3-point favorite. Buffalo looked kind of, played their worst game in about a year on Tuesday night. What do you figure happens?
Shockingly, if Chris Jones plays, I definitely like the Chiefs. Chris Jones' health, I think Josh Allen's coming back down to earth a little bit. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'll lay the points. And I actually would take the under in that game as well.
Perch, what do you think of that one?
Chiefs big. I got the Chiefs going in there winning by 10. I just think that some holes were exposed again in your boy Josh Allen. I know he's had a good year this year. I know you've got faith in him, but I just think that there's still some room to grow there, and I think Mahomes is not going to lose 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like it's it has come down to earth time a little bit for the Bills. But, if this were like a stadium full of Buffalo fans in a primetime game, I might actually pick the Bills. I'll pick them to keep it close. I don't know about, getting only 3. If they were getting a touchdown in this game, I would take the Bills to bounce back a little bit. But I figure you're right that Kansas City probably makes a difference. It is going to be sort of miserable weather there, looks like. So if that's the case, that might make a little bit of a difference in terms of, that what the Chiefs' offense is able to do. I don't know. Actually, maybe not. Now that I look at it, it doesn't look like the bad weather is going to hit until after the game. So much for my gambling analysis. Let's on that note, let's move to. One thing I just wanted to say. Either of you guys see the comparison of the last. Ryan Tannehill has 14 starts as a Titans starter, and the comparison to his 14 starts as a Titan and Patrick Mahomes' last 14 games. Did you guys see this stat?
I did not.
Basically, Tannehill has more yards, I believe a better completion percent, more yards per attempt, and a better touchdown to interception ratio than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has been shockingly mortal in terms of his stats in the last 14 games. So just the little Buffalo note to throw at, Kansas City note to throw at you there. So, he's not really in a slump, but it does feel like he's to whatever degree the league is caught up to him, they've caught up a little bit. He's still great, but maybe not quite otherworldly yet this last stretch. All right, we move on now to our 5-star matchup, and it's a 5-star matchup because we're in it. Let's start with you, FC. Tell me about the Steelers playing your Cleveland Browns in a rivalry game that actually, both teams are actually pretty good for a change. What's your take on this Sunday's effort?
I've hinted around at it. I really like the Steelers this week. I just feel that this is going to be maybe the best game that they play this year on all three sides of the ball, offense, defense, and special teams. I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wait for it. 46-23, which is an incredibly large number. I think that this is going to be Ben, and I won't be shocked if he spreads it around to maybe 4 or 5 different receivers, including running backs, for touchdowns. I just think that the Steelers defense is going to play lights out, and the Browns may score some late points, insignificant points, but I think that this is going to be a rout.
Wow, yeah, that's a big production. Perch, you're the leader right now on the show in terms of most accurately predicting the Steelers. What's your take on it this time?
I also like the Steelers to win comfortably. To me, the Browns have a really talented defensive line. The rest of the defense, they're leaking a lot. The Browns have a really talented run game. Their passing game's been hit and miss. It really is going to come down to Ben versus Baker, and Baker's got sore ribs, and we've got one hell of a pass rush. So, like I said, Steelers win comfortably. I'm going to go 27-25.
27-25.
Comfortable Steelers win, right? The Browns will score late to get it down to 2 points. So, we'll only pull half our hair out during the game. Comfortable Steelers win 27-25.
I think you're just – I want to make sure that we're listening to you. As Mike Palm,
we all watch the same team, right? We know what happens at the end of every game. They'll find a way to make it close.
Yeah, gotcha. Mike Tomlin had a great Tomlinism this week. He's not interested in the labor pains. He just worried about delivering the baby. So I think that's where this is at. It's like, it doesn't matter. I'll start off with that disclosure. It doesn't matter to me at all how they win this game. I am not going to judge the Steelers differently if they win by 1 or if they win by 30. Just because it's first of all, in a rivalry game, that's the way it goes. When the dam breaks, it breaks all the way, and teams are able to keep it close in a way because they're so familiar with the other team. But I like the fact the Steelers are not quite as predictable. This is the first time for the Browns seeing the Steelers doing something different on offense in a long time. So I have a feeling that might be a factor in this game. I like the Steelers to win comfortably, although it wouldn't surprise me if the Browns score some late scores to make it appear closer. But I feel like the Steelers' point total might actually be diminished a little bit just because I feel like they're going to be ahead. And once they get ahead late enough in the game, they're going to stop falling downfield. But I'll still like them to get to 38. I like 38-26 for your Steelers this week. That takes us to our last word. I'll give it to you first, FC.
Don't tell me about the labor. Show me the baby. It's one of my dad's favorite frickin' sayings for talkative women. But that'll be my final word.
Yeah, well, that describes your Cleveland Browns pretty adequately. No offense to women. Perch, give me your last.
My dad's a chauvinist.
Hey, we came into this year thinking, man, if the offense holds up their end of the bargain, the Steelers have a Super Bowl caliber defense. And boy, we're averaging 30 points a game. Ben's had one turnover. He's shown his arm's healthy and he's playing well. And the offensive coordinators are doing a good job and they're spreading it around. Hey, defense, how about holding up your end of the bargain? So if we get that defense back to where it was last year, this team is. I'm ready to put them in that group for legitimate Super Bowl contenders, where I wasn't quite sure I was ready to do that before the year because I had some concerns with the offense. But the offense is holding up their end. Hey, defense, let's go.
Great. Hopefully they will prove themselves in your eyes this week, Perch. I'd just like to say a shout out to Perch for hitting the Irish joke, and to FC for hitting the misogynist joke. Got you guys. Maybe I can come up with like a religion or politics joke for next week. First off, I'd like to make two predictions. I predict that Ray-Ray McCloud is going to break a return this week. Not that he hasn't before, but I think that's a part of the game for Cleveland that I know they're talking about in Cleveland and the team. And I feel like it might, it's been an issue for them to this point. And Ray-Ray McCloud is a pretty good return guy who looks like he's maybe going to get some punt returns as well as kick returns this week. So I like that. And the other thing is, for all the talk about this week about Ben doesn't take any deep shots, and Ben himself, deep ball is not there. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe I'm too strong, blah, blah, blah. It reminds me of, the first part of the 2018 season where everybody was like, what's wrong with Ben's deep ball? He's forcing it. I don't know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And then before you knew it, he was dropping bombs. I have a feeling that there will be one or two beautiful-looking deep shots from Ben this week. That's my last word. Gentlemen, thank you for an excellent show. Steel Perch, FC, on behalf of everybody at SteelerFury.com, everybody who follows on, YouTube, Facebook, our Steeler Fury Facebook group, the internet, Twitter, and all over. I am your host, Accidental Zen, Bradshaw to Ben, and Will Mastersack saying, talk to you next week after a gigantic Steelers victory. Go get them, Steelers.
Go Steelers.
There we go.